Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark, and today I've got something a little different to work on. My first Swiss pocket watch. Up to this point, I've been working mostly on Waltham and Elgin pocket watches, but as you can see, this is an IWC pocket watch. IWC standing for International Watch Company. I don't expect it to be too different, but I'm excited to get started and see what this watch has in store. I've been told the balance staff is good, but the watch doesn't currently run for more than a few seconds before it stops. I have a feeling it's just dirty and could use a service. But you never know, so let's go through this movement together and see what we find. So I'll start by opening the case back, and that reveals a really nice looking caliber 73 movement. It has those very distinctive finger bridges. IWC made this movement between 1913 and 1930. But I'll talk more about IWC as a company and this movement a little bit later. And here are some hallmarks inside the case. If I have time in this video, I'll show those a little closer, but on first glance, it shows that the case is made of 90% silver. And I like that, that's cool. Removing the bezel, we see our first bit of damage. There's a small chip and a crack in the crystal, so I'll need to measure that a little later so I can order a new one. And now we get a clear view of the dial, which on first glance looks like patina, but now that I see it up close, it looks like some of the discoloration may just be dirt. So I'll figure out what I want to do with that a little bit later on also. But for now, before I take the hands off, I want to check the function of the motion works. And it looks like everything is working nicely there. I'll use some plastic to protect the dial while I use some hand levers to remove the hands. And I'll store them in this little membrane box for later. It doesn't look like I'll have to do anything with those. They're in pretty good shape. Now here's a little difference. In addition to a couple of case screws, I also have to loosen the setting lever screw and remove the stem before I can remove the movement from the case, just like a wristwatch. On the watches I've worked on before, the stem is part of the watch case. This movement also has a spacer ring attached to it so it can more snugly fit into the pocket watch case. The actual movement is around 38 millimeters and is a variant of the movement that was used in the famous IWC Portuguese wristwatch, the first wristwatch ever produced by IWC. It's actually the same movement, except the stem is located at 3 o'clock, which is on the caliber 74, and it's at 12 o'clock on this one, the 73. So the fact that it was used in a wristwatch would explain the presence of the setting lever screw and the removable winding stem and crown. Now that the spacer is off, I'll take this opportunity to remove the balance assembly and put it in a safe place. I definitely don't want to risk damage it in any way. As you may be able to see, there are no dial screws, so the dial feet are probably held in place with spring pressure. I'll just use some gentle pressure from some pegwood to see if I can get any movement of the dial. And sure enough, it just pops right off. And I'll put it in this little case for now, again, to protect it. So while I'm on the dial side of the movement, I remove the dial washer, the hour wheel, and the cannon pinion before placing it in the movement holder. So I want to talk a little bit about the International Watch Company while I start to disassemble this side of the movement. IWC was founded in 1868 by an American watchmaker and former director of the E. Howard Clock and Watch Company. His name was F.A. Jones. Jones had envisioned making watches in Switzerland, utilizing the large number of highly skilled watchmakers already there who were being paid relatively low wages at the time. He thought he could make the watches there using the new American production techniques and then import them to the US. Needless to say, being an outsider, he met with a lot of opposition in Switzerland until he met another watch manufacturer and industrialist, Heinrich Mosher. Mosher helped Jones set up his factory in Schaffhausen, Switzerland, utilizing his new hydroelectric power plant located on the Rhine River. Now, while Jones fell onto some hard times trying to get his watches imported to the US and eventually had to file bankruptcy, IWC is still operating today and is considered one of the world's best luxury watch brands. The watches are still manufactured in Schaffhausen today on the banks of the Rhine River. So now I am just removing the click and the long click spring. Now look at this. This is the setting lever screw, and that hole around it looks just terrible. It looks like someone used a screwdriver that was way too big for the screw and really chewed up the surrounding metal. I'm not sure I can do anything to fix that. I don't know if trying to smooth it out would help it look better or not. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I would really appreciate any suggestions. So I'm going to warn you now, this is going to be a long video. I'm going to be showing you a lot of things that I haven't shown in previous videos, such as my new mainspring winder, how to clean the dial, or how I'm going to clean the dial, and I'll be using my new press to fit the new crystal. I really hope you'll stick with me for the whole video because I think the outcome will really be worth it. You know, the more I learn and the more tools I acquire, I really want to show you how I'm progressing. That's really why I started this channel in the first place, to document my progress. So, as I've been talking, I've also been taking off the barrel bridge and these other bridges that they call finger bridges. I really think this is a good design idea. It should make it much easier when I'm assembling the movement, not having to try to line up 3 or 4 pivots in jewel holes simultaneously. Ooh, such a big word. So, other than the finger bridges, everything else, as far as the train of wheels, is pretty much the same. You may have noticed some extra doodads on top of the mainspring barrel, and I'll touch on that a little later. Oh, yeah, doodads. It's a technical term. So now I'm removing the pallet fork bridge and the pallet fork. Next, I'll loosen the setting lever screw, and normally that would cause the setting lever to fall to the bench from the other side of the movement, but the setting lever is stuck. And I think that's just another indication of how dirty this movement really is. Now I'm back on the dial side, and there's a cover on top of the intermediate wheel and the minute wheel, and it also helps to support the winding pinion and sliding clutch and keep them in place when the stem is removed. So this is very interesting. This looks like such a simple system. It's basically just a straight spring that does the job of both the yoke and the yoke spring, and another straight spring with a shaped head that is the setting lever spring. And they just fit so beautifully right here together. It's not complicated at all. Okay, so with the movement completely disassembled, I'll remove the mainspring from the mainspring barrel.
Ooh.
Now just look at the spiral perlage on the cap of the mainspring barrel. It's just so beautiful. And to think this part is facing down on the movement and would only ever be seen by the watchmaker servicing the watch. So now I'll remove the arbor and oop, I just heard something hit the bench. Okay, so that was the finger piece, and it's part of the Geneva Stopwork. It, along with the Maltese cross, work in conjunction with each other to make it possible for the watch to use only the most consistent power from the mainspring. It avoids the strongest power when the spring is fully wound and the weakest power when the mainspring is almost completely unwound. This consistency of power helps the watch run more accurately. I hope I explained that clearly enough, but if I didn't, or you just want to learn more about what the Geneva Stopwork is, I will leave a link in the description to another video that explains it fully and with animation. This is really cool. I've never seen this before. Had to do a little bit of research to figure out what that actually was. Okay, so I'm going to spare you watching me run the parts through the watch cleaning machine. I've done that in previous videos. But I did want to show you how I clean and lubricate the bottom balance pivot jewel and cap jewel. First, you'll notice that there's only one screw holding the cap jewel in place. I'm not sure if that's going to cause an issue, but it seems to be tight, so we'll just have to see. This screw is really tiny, so I kind of understand how it got lost by the previous watchmaker. We'll eventually see if I can find a replacement. So basically, it's just a matter of removing the screws, or screw in this case, and then the cap jewel can be removed. A little bit of Rodico helps. Then I soak the jewel in some lighter fluid for a few minutes and then rub it with a piece of pegwood. Then I rinse the jewel again in the lighter fluid and then let it dry. Then I place a small drop of Mobius 9010 on the flat surface of the jewel and place it back in the setting and screw it down. Now I get to use my newest tool, a genuine Bergeon mainspring winder. Up to this point, I've been installing the mainsprings by hand, and that really doesn't work very well because my glove or finger caught would almost always get caught in the spring and rip or tear, leaving little bits of the glove in the spring. But buying an entire set of these winders is very expensive, upwards of $1,000. So what I did was I just looked at the sizes of mainspring barrels that I'm currently working on, and I just bought that size for now. I hope to one day get a whole set of these, but for now, this will do nicely. So with the mainspring barrel put back together, I want to take a quick minute and clean the pivots on the train wheels. And for that, I use an E-Flex pin polisher. Just a few turns and it cleans them right up. With everything clean, I'm ready to assemble the movement, and I'll start with the train of wheels. Making sure I add a little HP 1300 to the center wheel. I'll add the first finger bridge, which only covers the center wheel and the third wheel. And this is pretty easy to get lined up. And I'll just add the fourth wheel bridge. And then the escape wheel bridge. Then just screw everything into place and I'm ready to move on to the barrel bridge. I'll just add a little HP 1300 before I install the hubs on the underside of the bridge. This adds needed lubrication, but it also helps the hubs stay in place when I flip it over. But before I do that, I have to install the winding pinion and sliding clutch onto the stem. And this is also the time to install that little setting lever screw. It's so easy to forget this part, but if I don't do it now, then I'll not have any way of getting it in there later. Then I can add the barrel bridge and attach the crown wheel and ratchet wheels. Next is the click and that very long click spring. These screws are so tiny. I think I'm getting my tweezer technique down a little better. I haven't had any parts go flying off in a little while. I learned not to hold things too tightly with these tweezers, and that I think is the key. I do drop things more often because I'm not putting so much pressure on the parts, but when they fall, they just drop straight down and they're pretty easy to find. So I'm not on my hands and knees with a flashlight half the afternoon. So as I put the pallet fork and the pallet fork bridge on the movement, I can feel that I'm starting to get excited. It's actually a combination of excitement and nervousness. I know that it won't be too long before I can put the balance on and see if this thing will run. So I've put a little bit of wine in the mainspring and it's the moment of truth. And boom, look at that. It starts right up. I just love to see that. That is such a relief. I'll add the spacer ring to the movement now, and that will actually protect the balance wheel from me inadvertently touching it and possibly breaking any of the pivots. I've just flipped the movement over and I'm replacing the keyless works. And that is relatively straightforward and simple. I make sure that I add a little Molykote DX to these areas. Molykote's a grease that is used on metal to metal contact areas, and it does a really good job. Everything on this movement seems so well thought out. It really is very easy to put back together. It's really fun to work on this movement. I've had a lot of fun. Now I want to lubricate the jewels with some 9010 to help reduce friction, and then flip the movement back over and do that on this side too. I just love the color of these jewels, especially against that gold color of the movement. What do you think? Now I still need to add the motion works, and that consists of this intermediate wheel, the cannon pinion, and the minute wheel. Then it gets buttoned up under this plate. Okay, now here's something I've not shown in my videos before, but I'm lubricating the pallet jewel and escape wheel. The grease is Mobius 9415, and it's made exclusively for pallet jewels. It is kind of a hassle to do this because it involves removing the balance, but it is essential that it is done because this is where the most intensive energy transfer takes place in a watch. If these surfaces are left dry or dirty, the escape wheel can actually wear a groove into the pallet jewel. With the movement complete, I'd like to try to clean the dial a little bit. I'm just using some warm water and a very soft, brand new, high quality artist's brush. The water is distilled and there's nothing added. No soap, no cleaner, nothing. I'm just letting it soak for a little while and then lightly agitating with the brush on the surface. Now I don't want to remove any patina, but there's no reason not to clean it. In my mind, dirt is not patina. So as you can see, this little soak made it look much better. Now I wouldn't recommend this for every dial. I mean, I know I took a chance of removing the numbers, but none of the paint was affected. Only the brass of the dial was cleaned. Next, I need to clean the case, so I'll start by removing the old chipped crystal. Then I'll use some regular silver polish to just remove some of the tarnish and brighten up the case a bit. There's no abrasive in this polish, so I'm not removing any scratches, and I won't be getting a mirror finish or anything that dramatic. So after I'm satisfied with the results, I'll run it through the ultrasonic just to get any traces of polish and any other dirt and grime that I may have missed. And when that's done, this is the result. And even with just that little bit of effort, I think the case looks really good. I'm very pleased. So I couldn't find a glass crystal in the correct size. So I'm going to have to settle for this polycarbonate one for now. But that means I can use my new crystal press. So now with everything clean, lubricated, and reassembled, we can put everything back together. So to be honest, I was a little intimidating working on this watch because this is the most expensive watch I've purchased for my hobby so far, and I really didn't want to mess it up. But the quality of the workmanship and how well everything fit together made it so fun to work on. And I really wanted to show you as much of the process as I could. I guess that's why this video is just so long. If you stayed with me this long, I really appreciate it. If you like what I'm doing and you want to see more, please consider subscribing to this channel. It would really mean a lot to me. Also, hit the like button and enable notifications so you can see my next videos as soon as they're published. How do you think I handled this restoration? Did I do too much? Maybe you think I didn't do enough? Did I ruin the dial by cleaning it? Should I have removed all the scratches from the case and polished it to a mirror finish? Please leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. I'm really curious to hear your opinion. Maybe if I get enough comments, we can find a consensus and I can incorporate your suggestions into a future video. Well, that's it. That's what I got. I really had a great time working on this watch, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Again, thank you all for your support. It really means so much to me. So until we meet here again next time, stay safe and God bless.